Okay, if you have a minor close to you, I recommend that you tell him or her to go into another room. And by minor, what I mean is someone under the age of 21. I don't recommend them listening to this video. I would say that it's better if they don't listen to this particular video, because some things that I'm going to say are going to be graphic, and I personally would rather them not hear what I have to say in this video. So, please, I don't care if they're in the martial arts. I don't care if it's a male. If they're under the age of 21, I recommend that you tell them to get up and go into another room. Maybe if they're a mature 18, 19, but certainly not a minor should be listening to this particular video. Okay, so here we go. I want to talk about the difference between a mindset of sport and a mindset of self-defense. When I, a lot of what I get, a lot of the ideas that I get from looking at questions and looking at comments. Because based on how one comments, or based on questions that people might ask, or even what some troll might say, I can get the feeling of what people really think I'm saying, or I can get the feeling of what what definitions they may have of things that I think are faulty. Okay, and I may have a different definition and think that my definition is a better functioning definition. So I get a lot of my ideas from kind of looking at comments, even like I said, even trolls, even insults. I get an idea of really where they're coming from, and that may help me to kind of find something to post, because I've said before, I'm getting bored, right? There's just so many things. I'm not going to be a social media prostitute like Teddy Atlas, who I think is a social media prostitute. Before I get into the meat of this particular video, I want to explain why I say that Teddy Atlas is a social media prostitute. Here is now a man who talks about mixed martial arts, knows nothing about mixed martial arts, right? For 50 years, 55 years, no talk about mixed martial arts. Okay? But now he talks about mixed martial arts, and people just jump and just take his word for what he's saying. Not one person has the guts to say, listen, man, you barely know enough about boxing. You can't keep a boxer happy. You don't have a stable, and you've had all the chances in the world to get a boxing stable. You should have a stable like Freddie Roach, right? And now you're going to try to talk about mixed martial arts when you don't know enough about boxing to even make it worthwhile for a fighter to keep you. Okay, nobody's even saying that, right? So for me, to avoid something like that, or being a person like that, just kind of chasing views and chasing clicks, before I do that, I'll just stop posting. So if there are some things that you want me to talk about, then you can drop me a line in a forum. You can drop me a line in one of my several emails, and I'll post it. If it interests me, I'll post. Otherwise, I'm kind of getting bored with the whole posting on this martial arts channel. I may just pull away, and just stick with my new channel, because this channel has been really taking me away from the populating the new channel, right? So if you have any ideas, if you have anything you want me to talk about, if it tickles me, then I will talk about it. In this particular video, what I'm going to do is talk about the mindset of sport compared to the mindset of self-defense. But I want to say this first, okay? In so doing, what I'm going to do is I am going to talk about two icons. Not icons of people of color. I mean, I suppose some people like them. But two icons that just happen to be. just happen to be icons of, I guess, majority white MMA fighters, right? Or I guess so. And again, the reason why, some of you might say, well, why does he say white or black? For me personally, I think I'm one of the more fair people. I'm not racist at all. And I don't say like a lot of people who say, well, there are races and everything out of their mouth is racism. Now, no, I'm not that kind of guy, right? No, I think that racism is not only immoral, but it's illogical. Period. It's just illogical. If someone was an atheist, there is no grounds to believe that all of one group of people, everyone in that group is inferior or genetically evil or innately evil. It just doesn't make any sense. There is no such thing as a superior race. There simply isn't. So, why do I talk about a certain group of people a certain group of whites may prefer Joe Rogan and Sean Strickland, and blacks may prefer to talk about or hate me when I talk about Floyd Mayweather? It just happens to be the way it is. That's it. Ice is cold, fire is hot. That's it. I merely make connections when I am doing videos. This particular connection is between majority whites and the two icons I'm going to talk about when I talk about a convenient mindset. Joe Rogan is convenient. He's a convenient martial artist, which is why, yes, I do despise him. He is a convenient martial artist. I think he's the greatest fraud in the martial arts community. An absolute fraud, right? He's convenient. What do I mean by that? And I will be talking about self-defense. I will be getting into the graphic point, the graphic conversation, or the graphic words, or the graphic scenario that led me to ask you to remove, or ask a minor to remove themselves, him or her, from the room when I talk about. When I get into the meat of this video, I'm going to get into that. But when I talk about Joe Rogan and I say he's convenient, what I mean is he is very convenient. He comes across as a tough guy. So many of his fans believe he's a tough guy. The fact of the matter is he is a punk. He is a punk, and punks are very convenient in who they call out. He called out Wesley Snipes. Called out Wesley Snipes, but he won't dare call out Michael Jai White. Not even a spar. He will not even call out Michael Jai White to spar. Just playfully spar. I'm sure Michael Jai White has, control. But he won't call him out to spar. When we talk about Joe Rogan, he literally has the phone numbers of every great martial artist, MMA fighter right now today. Joe Rogan can get the phone number to Ilya Taporia, Max Holloway, whoever. He can get the phone number to anyone and spar with them. Why is it that this man can have the best sparring partners? This man can train with the best people, but he won't. Why won't he, as a black belt with 10th Planet, go and compete against other black belts? For sure, he has the money and he has the freedom to travel to these tournaments, and he won't, because he is an absolute fraud. He is a fraud, and he is convenient. That is what I'm talking about. When you are convenient, you're not talking about self-protection. You're not talking about self-defense. We look at Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland, he fights this person, knocks that person out. Why does he act like a little girl when he's sparring Alex Pereira? Why does he act like a straight-up girl when he's sparring Alex Pereira? Right? Sure. What are his fans going to say? Well, Alex Pereira punches hard. Well, Alex Pereira... Look, the bottom line is that's his weight, man. I don't care how hard people fight. I don't care how hard someone punches. Why is it that Sean Strickland is on his best behavior, right? On his best behavior, like he's wearing a pink tutu. He's on his best behavior when he's sparring Alex Pereira. But he will go ahead and he will try to beat up on other people. Right? Because he's convenient. Now, you can be convenient when you're talking about sports. But if you're talking about self-defense, now I'm going to get graphic. If you're talking about self-defense, you cannot afford cannot afford to pick who you are going to have a confrontation with. You cannot afford to have a martial arts mentality, right? You just simply can't do it. You can't do it. So let me get into the scenario. I'm getting a little feedback here, but hopefully it's not too much. Let me get into a scenario, and now I'm going to get graphic. Most of you who think in terms of self-defense, most of you look at someone who you have a size advantage over, right? And you're very confident, right? But if you see someone who's quite a bit bigger than you, right, in weight and in height, right, do you tailor your conversation based on the audience? Do you go out of your way not to irritate someone, for example, who is 6'3", 250 pounds of solid muscle? Do you? Do you? I will tell you, if you go out of your way to behave yourself in front of someone who is a lot bigger than you, has a lot more mass than you, then you do not have the mentality of someone who's serious about self-defense. You don't. Because you do not get the luxury to pick who you want to go up against if you're serious about self-defense. You have an obligation to be a one-man wrecking crew in as much as you can be. You have an obligation to, even when you are out in the local mall supposedly having a good time, to be able to look at anyone who is in the vicinity of your loved ones and figure out what you might do to them in the way of violence if they attempted to hurt you or your loved ones. There is an obligation of you as a man to do that, right? You don't have the luxury to be convenient. So, let's look at that 6'4", 250-pound man, solid muscle. Let's look at how you see him as someone who's interested in sport and how I see him as someone who is serious about self-defense. And again, if a minor is still in that room, I recommend you tell them to leave now. If you were to see someone 6'4", 260 pounds, not particularly menacing, but just that big, solid muscle, not fat, solid muscle, right? You would probably look at that individual and feel you better watch your mouth. You would probably look at that individual and feel like, the best you could do was make sure you didn't withstand too much damage because you have very little chance of beating that individual, right? But me, I'm serious about self-defense. So when I see an individual like that, 5'7", 190 pounds, when I look at someone who was 6'4", 260 pounds, I don't change my behavior because he's that size. I don't tailor my argument based on whether or not he's going to like what I said. See, I certainly don't want an altercation with him, but I do think about what I might have to do. And that is the difference between talking self-defense and thinking sport. Because again, you might look and say, well, I don't know if I could choke him out. Well, I don't know if I can get this Muay Thai kicking on him. Well, I don't know if I can throw this punch. Me, I say, he has veins. He has arteries. He does not have an infinite amount of blood. When that blood goes, he goes. When there is no more blood or not enough blood to sustain his life is done. And yes, my freedom, why run? I would have to come to grips with the reality, right? Something I call RA, radical acceptance. Radical acceptance. I might just have to sit down on a stoop outside, blood all over me, and yes, call the police. Right? Yes. Okay? See, when you think about self-defense, you don't have the luxury of thinking in a convenient way, in a convenient sense. Okay? You're not talking about, well, how I'm going to choke this guy out. Or I might be able to kick this guy. No. And see, because most of you can't do that, because most of you were talking about really sport, and you're trying to talk about, yeah, you can fight. Like people talking about boxing. All you got to do is box. All you got to do is box. I am a better boxer right now with 63 than 90% of the people right now on social media. And I will tell you, if you were talking martial art, you're not talking self-defense. If you were talking martial art, you are not talking self-defense. Because any martial art you know is only part of a package. I'm going to say it again. Any martial art you know is only part of a package. Okay? Because there are people who not only have the size, but have the attitude that make it necessary for you to do away with them and, yes, hence possibly lose your freedom or worse. So when you look at someone, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about how you can box them. You're thinking about whether or not you can choke them out. You're thinking MMA. Is that what you're thinking about? Really? Well, you're not thinking about self-defense. You're thinking about fighting. Fighting. And people who really understand self-defense have no interest whatsoever in fighting. They have no interest in fighting. No interest in you hit me and I hit you. That's not self-defense. That's not. Okay? Because once again, when you were talking self-defense, you devised a strategy to hurt as badly as possible anyone of any size. See you next video.